This demonstration shows some of the ways in which watercolour paint can be used. Watercolour paint is translucent and generally used thinly, allowing the white of the paper to show through. Because watercolours are not opaque, it is not capable of covering up mistakes, and a light colour can't be used to paint over a darker colour. Therefore, when using watercolour paints, you need to work from light to dark. The colour of watercolours is lightened by adding water. So to achieve a pink, for example, you can dilute the red until the correct shade of pink is created. Here I'm starting with the backgrounds, so I'm working with wet on wet, blending colours to match my source image. I'm then using salt to create some texture into the watercolour, so I sprinkle salt on to absorb some of the paint. I've also used a straw to create the natural shape of the branches, which is quite organic, it's quite difficult to control. And then I've also used some wax resist in the background to add to the texture, just using a wax crayon before the watercolour was applied. You'll see that I didn't draw my birds before, so I had to place water onto the bird and then use kitchen roll to blot off the excess colour before I started painting, because if you remember, you can only work light to dark. So you can see here now I'm gradually building up the colours, so I'm starting with the lightest tone, gradually building up to the darkest tone. As I'm working along, I'm blending and using water to blend, mixing my colours, so making different tones of blue and tints and shades, and really closely observing my source image to see the direction of the brush marks, to see the direction of the feathers, and to see where I need to layer colours in order to create the three-dimensional form on a 2D surface. So I keep looking back at the image and I'm copying the tonal range. I'm also working into the background, so again looking back at the source image and then deciding where I need some darker tones alongside the bird to bring the bird forward into the composition. So I'm not working into everything in the background because I want my background to stay quite light. I want to leave the textures created from the salt and the wax resist, and I'm wanting the birds to have more detail in the foreground, so the birds and the branches. So I'm purposely leaving most of the background quite light. So I'm just working into sections around the bird, working into some of that negative space to keep the bird moving forward, okay? It really is about practice and about observation and accurate colour mixing. So the more you practice, the better you get. So this is an hour's painting, 68 minutes it took in total. You can see here some of the textures created from the salt, which are quite subtle. And then the textures created from using the straw to create the branches. And that's the final result.